Hey guys, what's up? My name's Seb, and welcome to the Jump Inside Jumpcast, where we talk about all things gaming and we discuss this and that and all of this stuff. One of the things I want to mention, this month we've done a few darker games I'd like to mention. Danny, you've chosen some of these darker games. So what specifically, what has chosen you to record some of these games? What makes some of these games quite interesting for you?
The reason why I recorded those games because I wanted to make the theme horror, and they were the only horror games that looked horror.
Yeah. Okay.
And the way the recording went, well, Redfall feels alright. It was more of just like a.
Redfall was not alright.
It was.
We had a discussion about Redfall.
It was a load of bums.
Okay. Right.
It
Okay.
wasn't that good.
Alwood's also in this chat. I'm going to invite Alwood. Alwood, hello, how are you doing as well?
I am doing fantastic.
That's great. Yeah, sorry, I didn't give you a proper introduction there.
It's fine, just doing a little bit of doing some things on my channel, doing some things on this channel. Been doing pretty good.
No, so here's my call. I don't necessarily completely hate Redfall. It's just, it wasn't quite there for me as a horror game, personally. So I know there's people out there that might enjoy it. I just, it just wasn't for me.
What game was Bethesda trying to do like recently?
That was the Bethesda game. That was Redfall.
No, but like I swear you told me there was like another one they're gonna do in like summer.
Really?
No, oh no, that's not a scary game or a horror game. That is a space game, and that's coming out in September.
What was it called? That's what I'm asking.
Oh, that's called Starfield, and I'm so looking forward to that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
carry on.
What's the point of them making a horror game when they're about to release a big game? Like, it's like there was no need of wasting time to make it.
Oh no! So it's an attached company. For people who don't know about this, Redfall is made by a company that has developed that game, but the actual people that produce that game, that make sure it goes out on, I think it's developed by Arcane, and it's published by Bethesda, as vice versa as on the other game, which is Starfield, that's developed and published by Bethesda.
Yeah, but like, so they just took the.
Yeah, so
name.
think of it as different studios. You've got the Arcane studio, yeah, which is owned by Bethesda, and you've got the Bethesda main studio, yeah. The Bethesda main studio makes all that big games, and you've got the Arcane studio, which goes under Bethesda, and Bethesda publish the games that team make. That's their own private team, but they use Bethesda to publish their games. So just for a recap, so yeah, that's how it works. But underall, I was always fishy about, like, if, for the whole sake of why would Bethesda publish that particular game around that date? Because like they've got a big game, as you said, coming out.
It's like, what's the point of like releasing a game under their name when they're about to release a huge game that people have been waiting for years? Like, because surely like it costs them money to have that game under their name, because as you just said, they didn't make it. All they did is just have it published under them. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like that surely costs money, right? It doesn't come free because they didn't make it.
No, there's everything costs money.
It doesn't cost.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, what's the point of wasting your money on a game which is a horror game when you're about to release a space game? Like,
they've always had dealings with Arcane. Arcane have been quite a big producer. They've made some really good games. Like, for example, they've made the Prey game, and I think they made that. I think they made Thief. I'm not quite sure. I'm not 100% sure on that.
oh, that one.
Yeah, the actual, yeah.
Oh, also, Thief Simulator 2 is coming out. I've seen some beta game. I've seen people play the beta version of it.
Okay.
So it is coming out.
That's cool.
No idea when. We'll have to search that up.
I've put it on the list of things to record. Right, okay.
Yeah, definitely.
But bring it back down to the core of everything that we're talking about. Horror game and a scary game. Because later on in this podcast, I'm going to go into... I'm going to bring Kamizoide along, and we're going to be talking about a specific horror game, so I'm looking forward to that. But the time being, I just want to discuss exactly what the difference is between a horror and a scary game. It's just, like, for me... when I perceive it, I see one being jump scares and the other one being atmospheric. You touched on a bit of knowledge about this, Danny, earlier on when we started recording. So what were you saying about horror? The difference between horror and scary games?
The whole thing I said.
Yeah.
I don't mind. Okay, so I think a horror game and a scary game are different because I'm gonna use Outlast and Phasmophobia as examples. So
Okay.
Outlast is a horror game because, like you said, it does have jump scares. It has that atmosphere of scariness, but there's one thing about it. The thing is that it's a storyline game. Like, there's a story to it. Yeah, you play as this person who goes into the hospital and does whatever. I haven't really played that much, but I know that's the baseline of it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is a horror game because it's scary with jump scares, with the atmosphere, but it has a story to it. But a scary game, it's like Phasmophobia. Phasmophobia, there's jump scares, there's the atmosphere, but it's not really a story game. It's more of a mission game, and you just do different missions in different houses. So
Yeah.
that's my opinion on them two.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
I can
then
definitely.
I was gonna say on Elwood, what have you played games in the horror genre?
Yeah, I've definitely played a few. I've played The Last of Us, which is definitely, I feel like, as Damien's saying, is like more of a horror game. Like, it actually has a plot. Like, you need to get Ellie to this place in order to make a cure. And of course, I played Five Nights at Freddy's, which is just a scary game, which is just
That's scary. Yeah, that's
that
not
game,
horror. That's scary.
Yeah, that game isn't really a horror. I mean, it does have kind of a story, like, you know, the 7 days and
it was
everything.
scary
But,
at the beginning.
yeah, but it's not really a storyline game. It's kind of, it's not really.
The one thing that I hate about horror games, yeah, and here's my thing, and you have to make a really good horror game to completely fall out of this trap. When you start playing a horror game, you have you have this atmosphere. Oh, I don't want to walk into that room because I feel like something's going to jump out of that room and actually just get me. But after a while, when you get to like the later levels in a horror game, it starts to become more of a first-person shooter or something. I think it was Alan Wake. Alan Wake did this really bad. It was a really good game, and then all of a sudden, it just got it turned into a shooter, and I was like, why have you turned this fantastic game of love into a FPS shooter near the end of the game? It makes no sense, but that's the way it was always leading, and I just didn't like it. It just felt like that's the direction it was heading in.
Yeah.
Danny, where's your investment stake? Do you prefer horror games or scary games in this matter, knowing what these things are?
I like them both. I mean, I haven't really played.
Yeah.
I've played more horror games than scary games. I mean, I think they both have their pros and cons to them. Like, scary games, it has no story, and it's more like with your friends. Because most scary games, you do it with your friends, and you can do it whenever you like. There's no rush or anything. It's just mission based. But like horror games, like Outlast, you can say it's like you want to complete it. So the con is kind of like a scary game. There's no storyline to it, and you can just play it whenever. But a horror game, there's a story, and you want to finish it. So I like them both. Like, it has the.
You like them both. That's great.
They're both good. They're both versions.
And Elwood, on the same question for you, which is your preference? Do you prefer a scary, horror, or both kind of person? Because for me, I know which one I stick as, and I stick straight to scary. Before I let you answer this question. I'm not a big fan of horror out of the two. I love horror, it's great, but I just always feel like horrors eventually turn into like an RPG shooter more than a horror game itself. But that could be my experience because I've just never really liked horror games, because the first game that really got me into, well, there was a game that was meant to be horror and it absolutely failed on me because it bored me to death, and this game just wasn't a good game at all. And it was the Blair Witch. It was meant to be the horror game, and it turned out it was just kind of it just died on me. So yeah, I've always been a big fan of Phasmophobia, and Phasmophobia is always a game where I'm always scared because I hate walking into the house alone because I'm always scared a ghost is going to get me.
Yeah.
I've kind of slowly turned myself into a bit of a pro. I'm not so scared as walking into a house, but every time the ghost comes out, I get the ghost comes out. But yeah,
and also in in a scary game, the actual ghost or whatever you're fighting against is always different. In Phasmophobia, there's like over 20 different types of ghosts you could be against, so you never know exactly what you're against. But in a horror game or like in like a horror game like Outlast, you know the different types of enemies. You know who you're fighting against. You always know their name usually and what they look like. It's like Resident Evil. You know who you're fighting against. But unlike Phasmophobia, you have no idea. You're completely in the dark.
I'm gonna draw in on that question, but no, LWood, what is your preference right now? Just wondering on based on these things.
I definitely feel like I enjoy horror games more because of the stories, instead of just, oh, there's some like evil thing coming at you, you better hide. Like I at least want to enjoy the story. Like, depending on the story, like don't over-explain the horror elements. Like, you got an evil thing, show the evil person or thing, going, make sure the person that, or thing that is evil is good. Like, don't make it all over, explained or anything like that.
Yeah, okay, I get what you're saying. I'd say, one of the main differences, and Danny, you're more than welcome to put me in on this one, but, as you said before, and kind of like a thing, but just drawing it into a thing, when you play a horror game, if you die in a horror game, and you have to restart track back, you know what's going to be through the door. It's going to be a zombie. It's going to look like that. It's going to act this certain way. You're going to be able to learn off this creature. It's going to become unscary, and you're going to be able to eventually walk past it.
It's like,
whereas
it's like an FPS game. It's like, okay, let's say you're playing Modern Warfare, and you're in this house. You're going dark. You're stealth mode. You open the door. Out of nowhere, there's a guy. I mean, I was playing Modern Warfare earlier. It was Modern Warfare 2. I went into the house, climbed through the window, and this guy just popped up under the floor and killed me. And I respawned, and I knew exactly where he was. But I get what you're saying. You know the enemy is. You're expecting it, but Phasmophobia.
First time round,
the ghost always changes. Like, he always moves.
Exactly.
They're always moving.
Yeah,
they're never in the same space.
Exactly, it's always something. You don't know when it's going to appear. You know what you're going for, but you know that you're not allowed to leave the house until you have some evidence or information on what you're dealing with, and that is not a nice thing to wait for. You're in that thing going, okay, what's going to happen? I have no clue, and you panic died in the best of situations, which isn't a bad thing. I absolutely I love that situation. I love being on the edge of my chair. I've always said, one of the great things about video games is not when you're feeling comfortable, because if we as gamers wanted to feel comfortable, we'd watch TV on Saturday night TV, and it's absolutely fine. And I have nothing wrong with watching TV, but when I want to play a game, it's because I don't want to know what's coming around the corner, or I want something new, or I want a story or something. I mean, unless you're playing The Sims, and that's, by the way, that's a great game in its own right. But no, if I'm playing that horror genre, it's because I just don't want to know what's going to happen around the corner, and it just eventually turns into that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little bit annoying, but it's not saying that games and horror games can't do that, because they're, you know, you can divide horror games up into certain things. So if you were to make a horror game as a choice, what would you do to it to make it better?
Horror game.
Yeah. So like, you know, because like normally I fight bad guys or poison them with, or shoot laser beams at them to, you know, to kill them, or like I use some kind of special weapon, but eventually I'm killing them in some type of way.
Change horror games. I'm not really sure what I can change about them though. They're pretty good in its own way.
You know what I would do to improve?
Yeah,
Big
what would you
monster
improve?
creatures. Big, massive monster creatures. There is nothing creepier in a place where you're in a big open room. You walk in there, you see, you're like, okay, you know, and nothing's inside there, and then suddenly you look up at the roof, and it's a big giant spider. That's when it gets me.
No thanks.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's a horror game for me. That's when the horror game gets really good. If
Yeah, that's
it's a
when it gets
bad
real.
guy or a monster that I can kill, that's great. If it's an overpowered, dark, scary spider, that's a completely different story. Because I don't want to face a dark, scary spider.
But you have to
then
kill
again, or I like this one, because sometimes you get this one as well. Like, okay, you know when you stare at a building and you're like, okay, that's just, you know, and you think it, and then suddenly you start realizing that this creature's on that building, and you go, oh no, I'm backing off from that. Those are the type of things that I want in my horror game. You know, I'm not sure about you. Any guys on thoughts on that?
I could definitely see that, like making something that's in everyday life kind of scary, like more scary. Like a spider, you could just normally switch with your shoe, but like having it be like the size of a skyscraper or something can make it definitely very scary. Like I can definitely see that.
Okay, here's a genre. Well, no, here's a particular game. It goes to both of you. You can choose to answer any order you want. Actually, no, I'll tell you what. LWood, you can go for this first. Okay. This game, is it a horror game or is it not a horror game based on a specific point of this particular game? Okay. Minecraft Dungeons.
Yeah.
Not Minecraft Dungeons the game, but Minecraft just exploring in a dungeon.
Yeah, those can definitely be very stress-inducing.
Yeah, but is it horror?
Yeah, not really.
Or is it? No? Okay.
Well, like, I mean, it is kind of like the horrors of the unknown. Like, you don't know if there's going to be a creeper,
Does a creeper
or a
count as a proper
Say the
horror
question
creature?
again.
They explode in your face.
Say the question again.
A creeper in Minecraft.
Yeah.
Would it count as a horror creature?
Yeah,
Like
what
a
would
horror
you do
monster?
if you found a creature right behind you that can explode?
I'm gonna I know it's a bit of a weird argument, but honestly, I think when you see a creeper inside a dungeon, like, oh shh, and you wanna get the heck out of there.
I see that.
Yeah, okay, maybe scary thing. Okay,
because if you say it's horror, then that means all of the enemies are creepers when they're not everything. It's creepers, and in the dungeons, it's not always going to be a creeper. But if it was always creepers, then yeah, that would count as a horror creature. But that's just a scary creature because there can be multiple types of them. So yeah.
All right.
LWood, what's your favorite horror-y, scary game?
Probably The Last of Us. Like, I really enjoy the story and the characters of that. But I would probably have to say the series definitely outdoes the games. just because it has more time to like do stuff that the games wouldn't do.
That is also another question I was going to ask as well.
My favorite. I mean, it's Dying Light. I mean, it's not horror, but it's a scary game. Like the fact that a volatile, if you played the game, you know what that is, can come at you at any time, or just a ton of zombies can swarm you at any time. One loud noise can trigger a bunch of virals. That's scary, and that's petrifying. Like if you make a really loud bang, you're like, okay, well, like five zombies about to come running at me any second. That's scary. Just to think.
That also counteracts my argument at the beginning, because I don't think zombies are horror. I think zombies are scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not really horror.
But then,
it just depends if it's based around that. I mean, like, no, that's stupid.
But if they are scary, which I definitely think they can be, very easily scary.
I mean, The Last of Us aren't they just the zombie-looking things? They are. Aren't
No,
they?
they're kind of zombies, kind of not.
Kind of not. Yeah.
Like
I still love that game
not-
that Danny showed me that one time.
they're just
Was it
infected with a
World War Z or
virus.
something?
What, World War Z?
I love that game. That's a really
World
good
War-
zombie
Oh
game.
yeah, that game. It's neither, to be honest. I think that's more of just an FPS thing.
Do you know what it reminded me of? And kind of weirdly enough,
What?
What?
what's that? You know,
Left 4 Dead.
that Left 4 Dead. But there was no. What was that other game that we recorded?
Oh, I don't
It was
know.
World War
mate.
Z, Left 4 Dead, and there was another zombie game we recorded, and I can't remember the name of it.
The Evil Within.
And I, no.
Well, those were the only games that we recorded.
What's the sequel? The Evil Without?
No, it was the one that was in Germany and everything.
Germany.
Zombie Army. That was it. That's the one you
the World
fully
War
showed
II
me.
one.
I thought
Yeah,
you were
that
talking about World
reminded
that
me of
one.
Left 4 Dead.
Yeah, that's very.
That was like a single player Left 4 Dead. I love that. I'm glad that game's a thing. Oh, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh. No, then yeah, okay. So zombie games can count as a scary game. So scary games are not always without stories. Some scary games can have stories, but there are very slim lines of where we place that. So, for example, like zombie games can be scary games, and those games can have stories.
Yeah,
Would that be
exactly.
correct?
Yeah, like Resident Evil or Silent Hill or any other horror game.
I wouldn't say they're horror games. I'd say they're scary games. That's what we're going with.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a very interesting take. Okay. Finalizing this, then, Danny, what's your favourite then zombie game in total?
My favorite, like, game other than hot zombies.
Yeah, so what's your favourite zombie game? What's your favourite horror game? Because I think your favourite zombie game was that.
Let's see. I'm just looking at my games. I don't know. I don't really play. I've got a multiplayer one, Friday the 13th. Very good multiplayer. Very fun with your friends.
I have never played that game.
It's so good. It's so good with your friends. By yourself, isn't that fun?
Oh, do you know what I love about that game? Honestly, yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Playing as Jason.
Yeah, it's pretty much Dead by Daylight, but just way more cooler because there's been movies about it and stories about it. It's just way more cooler.
That's also another thing that I like about Left 4 Dead as well. You can play as the zombies.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you can. Oh yeah, and
Yeah, you can.
versus
Yeah,
mode, whatever you want to call it.
I think that's also a good thing that they should start adding to more and more scary games.
I mean, they do.
Number one, like, here's a question for you then, Danny. You ready for it? Because I know you like Phasmophobia. Phasmophobia is a 4-player game, yeah.
Yeah.
What if it was a 5th-player game and the one was the ghost?
Ooh.
Would be cool.
ghosts.
That would be an update. I'd like that.
Like that. Oh nope.
I think an element of making the player be the monster is a good thing. And
That would be cool.
But also you've also got to expect that if that was a game mode, more people would play that game mode than the actual game mode itself.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but like,
'Cause-
no. But like, they could just do it. It's that's the only game mode, and it's just randomized. Whoever gets a zombie, you're the lucky guy. I mean, like, so instead of having just 2 game modes, one game mode you could potentially be the zombie. No, I'm not a zombie, the ghost, and the other game mode you're not gonna be the ghost. They just have one game mode, and that'd be good. I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. Next mode, you're Freddy Krueger.
Here's a question.
Yeah.
Can a normal game,
Yeah.
so like a normal RPG, can a normal game be allowed to touch upon a horror game? Can you twist a normal RPG into a horror for maybe one level?
One level, I kind of feel like for an RPG, I kind of feel like you would have to go all in on the horror factor.
You think you'd have to go all in? Danny, you?
Maybe. It just depends what the game is. I mean, it would
Yeah.
be cool
Anything-
in Modern Warfare or COD. That would be cool. I would be
Like
very
ghosts in Call of Duty.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ghost turns into a ghost. Ghost turns
The
into
ghost
an actual
actually
ghost.
turns into an actual ghost.
Yeah, ghost
So
turns
there-
into
yeah,
a ghost.
I think that's pretty. Oh, okay. There was okay. Because for me, like, I was gonna mention Halo 2. There was a level where you're by yourself and you're going through this creepy location. But I think in total, I think you can pretty much turn any game into, like, you could have like a horror element to the game. But at that same time, I think space games could benefit out of a lot better. For example, like Dead Space 2, Dead Space 1, or what was that? Callisto Protocol. Those are space games. Those are zombie games, but they can definitely have the horror and scary elements inside them at certain locations. I think in total, if you were to make a game in total, I think you should definitely make it more focused on being a scary game than a horror game. But there's nothing saying that you couldn't have like a story element into it and you can't touch upon certain horror things. Or you could just do an RPG and add a horror thing into it. I think that would be kind of the best solution in this whole situation.
Yeah,
like, I think if you make something too horror, it just becomes
it just becomes
quite
silly.
bad. Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say silly as well. Yeah, I'd say there's a silly element to it if you make something overly horror.
Yeah.
But then again, certain games get away with it,
Yeah, good
and certain
point.
games are very, very good at doing it. But yeah. On that take,
Mhm.
are you guys fans of horror games, or are you guys like, nah, I'm probably gonna chill with my RPGs?
I like horror games, but sometimes they're just a bit too scary. I mean,
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
like my horror games
Okay.
sometimes.
I do like them. Yeah, they're not the worst thing.
Right, yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I think I absolutely love horror games, but they're not my first choice on my list. I don't specifically play them at a rate.
I wouldn't mind
that
if they
think-
made a bit more of them, but like, yeah, like I don't like. They have to make
I'm
a bit
still
more
waiting for a
interesting.
proper good one.
Or like,
Yeah.
I feel
Redfall
like
was
there's-
kind of it was a horror game, but not really.
And do you know what my most annoying part about any type of horror game?
Yeah. Is it?
When it's overly complicated.
Yeah,
That I must say.
stuff.
I like a nice simple level concept, not something too complicated.
Yeah, exactly.
If I gotta search for a key in the middle of a dark house, I'm not playing that game.
Exactly.
Like, what's the point? I can't. Sorry.
Yeah, but I hate games which like have them keys, but that they're in a bunch of drawers, and also when like I hate the atmosphere. When you have to find like a flipping key, and it's dark. You have a flipping flashlight, and there's monsters and people trying to kill you and trying to find you, and you can hear them walking around, and you just have to time your run. I hate that. That creeps me out.
Certain games are really good and get away with it, and sometimes games are exactly like that, Danny, and I absolutely hate them. And like, all right, so that's the end of that part of the podcast. I will invite LWood and Danny back at the end of the podcast, so we'll do a quick little quiz at the end. It's a very simple quiz, but it's very, very well timed. So if you want to catch that, stick to the end of the podcast. I'm going to say goodbye to LWood and Danny for now. Say goodbye to bye. See you later, guys.
See you later. Bye.
And now I'm introducing you over to Kamizoide. Kamizoide's coming into the chat now. So hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
That's
It's been
good.
a while since I've been here. Probably last 2 episodes have been out, but now I'm finally back.
I mean, I'm excited to have you back. I'm excited you to be here. I also want to make this podcast a bit more horror and scary and kind of give some elements, because there are some specific games that I want to mention currently right now, and I know that you are a big, massive fan of them, and you will defend them to your heart's content, which is why I wanted to make sure that if you had any comments on this, is that you clear these up so other people don't, because like you're the expertise that I know in this genre. So, starting off, and very, very first question here: is there a difference between a horror game and a scary game?
Oh, that is a good question. But honestly, I don't see a major difference between a scary game and a horror game. Isn't it like the same? And maybe there is a bit of variety between both of them. But honestly, I don't know the answer to this. This may be actually a good question, but I don't know the kind of difference, because I feel like they both offer the same thing, and that's basically trying to be a bit scary. But I do think that at least for a horror game, it focuses more on being scary and being frightening, rather than a scary game. It can ease a bit about the scary part and focus on offering a limited experience in terms of horror. Meanwhile, horror may focus on scaring the player as much as it can.
Okay, right, okay. I'd like to say, for me personally, and for what I've had I've always had a discussion about, scary games for me are monsters trying to scare you and to try and give you a jump scare. Maybe like in a ghost game where you walk into a house and a ghost comes out of nowhere. That's a scary game. And a horror game, for me, is atmospheric. So it has like a dark kind of world. For me, is always a horror type genre. That's what a horror game is for me. I don't know if you would agree to that or disagree to that, but that's what I perceive that as. And for that case, you mentioned to me earlier on is that you weren't quite you said and I don't play these games as much, but you play them a lot more than me. You said that things like Elden Ring isn't so much as a horror game as I thought it was. So lead me into that.
No, I mean, I hope I don't sound rude or anything, but considering Elden Ring or any of the other Dark Souls games as horror games is kind of stupid, because that's not what they're aiming for. I consider Elden Ring and the other games part of that genre as more of like adventure games or role-playing games. They lean a little bit into the action, but I maybe don't consider them into action games. Their main focus is to be more of a huge adventure, since it's all about going on an adventure. A unique adventure. You start from where you start, literally from nothing, all the way to become something great.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the basic of Elden Ring. There is one game created by the same company that made Elden Ring, Dark Souls. It's basically kind of the same thing, but with different atmosphere and different style of gameplay, which is Bloodborne. Now, if you said that, do you consider Bloodborne as a horror game? I would agree to also disagree, because the Bloodborne is the same style as Dark Souls, since it offers main focuses on adventure and it is a role-playing game. But when you look at the atmosphere and when you look at the areas within the game, I do also consider it a bit of a horror game, because some of the areas in the game are truly horrifying, and playing that game at night sometimes can really frighten me a bit. So when I look at like Bloodborne, and we're listening to what you said about horror games when they have to embrace you in a location that it's actually frightening, do consider it to be a bit of a horror, since it can offer a little bit of that vibe. But when you say that Elden Ring can be considered as a horror game, I completely disagree with that, since that is not where its main focus. Since its main focus is on a grand scaled adventure.
Okay, so then what would you class then? What would be the main portion of Elden Ring and Bloodborne and Dark Souls? Number one, would you say, because you said that there's horror elements in Bloodborne, would you consider them all the same kind of what they're aiming for? And would you say that they're then more RPG than they are horror? Or they're not horror at all and they are RPG?
They're more RPG, but there are some senses and elements of horror. For example, like jump scares. They use the element of jump scares or surprise attacks to, let's say, frighten the player a bit or surprise him. At least Bloodborne uses that a lot by
giant spiders.
Let's say surprise elements.
I've heard of giant spiders in that game.
Giants, yeah, but they're not actually frightening. And there is a spot where you fight giant spiders in Bloodborne, but you can already see them, so they don't like come at you by surprise or anything. And if something you see is coming and you already seen it and you know what you're up against, then it doesn't frighten you. But when something literally comes up out of nowhere, that frightens me. When it's completely dark and you can't see anything and an enemy comes out of nowhere and attacks me, that sounds more of a jump scare that frightens me and catches me by surprise.
Okay, so
yeah, go on.
So what type of player then is built for that type of game genre? Because I know for me, when I watch it, I love watching people play it, but I don't think I'd step into it myself. What type of player is that game then attracting?
I think these kind of games are for players who first want a challenge, because these games offer a huge, very good, difficult challenge, I would say. Second, it's for players who like adventure, who like to have this kind of adventure that by the end will make them feel really good and make them feel accomplished and all that. And third, for players who like role-playing games. And yeah, I think those are the basic major kind of players these games just aim to strike for.
Okay. So I've gone a little bit into deep diving into those games a little bit, and I kind of understand where those games come from. Would you say then, if not so much as horror or scary, but they are based on RPG, would you say that those games then, instead of using those words, would you say there's a dark atmosphere in those games?
It depends on the atmosphere, or let's say the environment of the game, the areas you go, you traverse and stuff. If you said the same thing and you told me on Bloodborne, I completely agree with you, because the atmosphere within Bloodborne is more horror than let's say normal or like the other games, since that's the main focus of that game. Meanwhile, the others, their atmosphere feels more normal and feels more relaxing and attracting compared to the others.
Okay then, moving on then, because I've watched people play it, and then not really a lot of people, like, I haven't actually played it myself. But one of the things that I was always interested in was the monster battling. Is the monster battling different in all 3 games? Because it looks similar on screen, but when I imagine from what you've told me that there's a different combat style from, let's say, from something like Dark Souls compared to Elden Ring.
Yeah, let's take an example between Elden Ring and Bloodborne. These two can look a bit similar, but in terms of gameplay styles, they're completely different. And even in terms of the bosses or the monsters you face, they're very different. Since in terms of design, Bloodborne's enemies are more frightening and look more scary, and they are more aggressive towards the player, compared to like Elden Ring when they feel a bit more alive compared to the other game, and they're easy to handle.
Okay, so here's a question that I always wonder. When I played Dark Souls 2 a while back, I went into that game thinking, oh, I'm gonna love this game, and then ended up dying like thousands and thousands of times, which I'd say kind of put me off from buying games in that genre and franchise. Is the battling in these games, like, okay, for example, like, I know that Dark Souls is made to be like one of the hardest games to complete in the world, but when it comes to Bloodborne and when it comes to Elden Ring, do they have that similar contrast of being quite hard when it comes to battling, or do you find the battling a little bit easier compared to Dark Souls, or are you just the master of combat?
Well, I'm not a master when it comes to combat. And for another thing,
I don't think you've watched your own YouTube series. I'll be honest with you at that when you state that. Then,
come on, man. Anyway, first off, I want to say this, man. You started with the very least likable Dark Souls game.
Did I? So is that what I did?
Yes. Let me tell you about my rank in terms of the best. Let's say. Souls game.
Can we include Bloodborne and Elden Ring in this mix of ranking? Yeah. Okay.
They're all a bit similar to each other.
Okay.
So for my ranking, I consider Elden Ring as the top, since for me it's the best. Then I consider Dark Souls 3 as my second favorite. Then Bloodborne, then Dark Souls 1, then Bloodborne, because I found Bloodborne to be very easy in terms of challenge. I love the atmosphere and I love some of the bosses. I consider them as some of my favorite. But in terms of challenge, I see that game as one of the easiest. I didn't have any hard time with it. And then there's Dark Souls 2. For me, I consider Dark Souls 2 as the worst, even though I love it. But the experience I had with that game was absolutely terrible.
Death.
I died a lot. It's not that I died to the bosses because they were challenging. The bosses were an absolute joke. They were easy to handle. But the atmosphere and the location of that game are so difficult, so hard. Just it killed me. It killed me a lot. But I managed to beat it. I don't know how, but I managed to just pull through and beat it. You started with Dark Souls 2, man. No wonder you hate that series. I would encourage you to at least maybe start with Elden Ring, since it's a little bit, it can be with the player a little bit and has a good start and all. But compared to the others, Dark Souls 2 is not the best one to start with. No. Now, going I talked a lot. Maybe I went off the topic, but
no, absolutely fine. I was going to mention on top of that, Len, that so a new player hasn't even stepped into the franchise, and to be fair, this is a franchise that when I see as a hard game, and I see this game with dragon battles in that are massive and full, and when I see that, I always think, oh, these are massive monsters, they're going to overpower me. Which would you say then? Would you say was the easiest game to step in for when it comes to, for new players? Would that also be Elden Ring for you? Because it's your favorite, but is it the easiest for a new player to step into?
Yes, I'll say that Elden Ring is the easiest for any new player to step in, mainly because of the amount of, let's say, stuff that can be added to new players that can help them out in battle. Plus, this is since the Elden Ring is an open world where you can literally go anywhere you want and do whatever you want. So you don't have the option, or it's not necessary for you to just go straight to the boss and be stuck right there. You can go find the boss, and if he's too difficult for you, you can just go to other locations, find other bosses to deal with, kill them first, strengthen yourself, and then go back to the other boss where you got stuck and then beat them. There's also summons that you can use that can help you out and make bosses easier for you. There's also spells you can use for long range attacks. So there are a lot of elements that can make it easier for the players. And one major advice I give to many new players who want to play Elden Ring or any other Dark Souls games, you don't have to just go straight to the boss and just be like a try-hard and not do anything. I just want to beat this boss. I don't care about doing anything. Dude, if you feel stuck, you can just save it for later and go do something else. You can go kill enemies around the area, just acquire some souls, strengthen yourself, find new weapons, find better equipment, and then go back to that boss and show him who's boss. Then you'll freaking kill him and move on. That's how it is. It's a challenge, and it sees you if you're patient and strong and have a strong will to beat this challenge, no matter how many times you die. And it's all about getting better and learning from your mistakes and coming back, being much stronger and stuff. So I think that Elden Ring is a very good game for newcomers, and if you pull through and push through these challenges, you'll have one of the best experiences ever.
Okay, that's cool. I like that. One thing then I wondered, okay, because that's the game that seems to be the more softer approach to this whole franchise. I say softer, I don't mean it's soft, but it's you're not going to hate the game like you would if you were playing Dark Souls 2. But for me, I love a good RPG, and I always have a few questions I always have in RPGs. So for people who don't know, which games then? So in the Dark Souls series, I find them very linear storyline. I also find this that's the same with Bloodborne. It's very much straight point. You're going forward through the level. Whereas when I see things like Elden Ring, I always see that as an open world. It feels very open world gameplay, but I've never actually experienced it properly. So I wondered, A, is it open world? B, is everybody on that game a monster, or are there some safe locations where there's like towns and people?
It's A and B. It's an open world, and everybody there is a monster. Everywhere in that land is a monster. There is a safe location where you can chill and power yourself, strengthen your weapons, where not everybody there is an enemy or is trying to kill you. They're all friendly enough. But that's like the hub area where you relax, strengthen yourself, and discover more about the world. So it's more of an open world where everything and everyone is against you. And then you have this hub where you can relax, strengthen yourself, and talk to some of the people who are still normal, I guess. Because there isn't a lot of NPCs in these kind of games. It's also it's very limited to, let's say, 10 or max number of NPCs 12. That's the amount of number of NPCs you find in these kind of games.
Okay. So then, right. Future of the franchise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question on this because I love playing cooperative games with my friends. Future of the franchise. Could Elden Ring, if it came out with a sequel, or if there were sequels from these genres of games, because I know they're very heavily single-player RPGs now that you've explained that. But for me, my question is, could they ever pull off a cooperative multiplayer version of their game? Would that be good, or would that ruin the franchise?
Well, these kind of games do have multiplayer, but I see their multiplayer is kind of limited, mainly because you can summon your friends and your friends to help you out, but they only help you out against the bosses. They do not like have this. You can't like let's say have this whole adventure, like start at the beginning of the beginning of the game and just reach the end and finish it with your friend. your friend can only join you to battle bosses or to face you, as he is, let's say, he's summoned against you and stuff, as an invader to invade your playthrough and try to beat you. I do see a lot of mods where people change the game into where you can summon your friend and he can be with you the whole journey. And if they actually manage to do that, and let's say in next games, that can actually be a major, let's say, element to the next games if they manage to do that. Because it's good to have your friends and like an online multiplayer to help you out and then against the bosses. But I want my friend to start with together. We start this journey from start to finish. I don't just want to call him out whenever I want to fight these bosses and stuff. Because then
Seb,
again,
I need
for me,
you. Why'd you need me? Just to fight a boss? Oh, is that what you need me for? Oh, that's great friendship, isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
I can see how that one plays across. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense actually. I absolutely, yeah. Okay. I can see where you're coming from. You want a game where you can have an adventure with your friend. You kind of want that Fable feel for an adventure, but with the game of Elden Ring, that would just be really nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's about the adventure if you're inviting your friend on the game. So yeah, I completely agree. In total then, I say then, Bloodborne definitely has some horror elements into it. The way you explained it, Elden Ring and Dark Souls, very slightly dark games, but they're not really horror, though they are definitely dark. They are more RPG than anything else. I think that's a good place to stick at that, right?
Yep.
Brilliant.
That's the best way to describe them.
Okay. Right now, guys, I'm going to bring us into a little bit of a game. Kamizoide has no idea what the game is. And I've pre-recorded LWood and I've pre-recorded Danny. You'll hear them in just a second. But this is how the game's going to work. And it's very, very simple. So, introducing Seb from the past. Okay, so Danny, here are the rules. You ready for it? I'm going to ask you 10 stupidly easy questions that you should somewhat know the answer to. They're not hard questions whatsoever. And after that, then we'll reveal to you who the winner is. The only rules I want you to in the game is you can't repeat the same game twice. So you can't say, if you answer a question and you say that game, you can't use that same answer for a future question. So as fast as you can. You ready for it?
Yep.
Okay. Starting off with the first question, I will begin the timer at the moment I finish the question, so answer it as fast as you possibly can. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Name a game set in space.
Callisto Protocol.
Name a game with zombies in it.
Dead Island 1.
Name a game where you have to drive a car.
Fortnite.
Name a game where you have to hack something.
Friday the 13th.
Name a game where you have to change outfit.
Hitman 1.
Name a game where you have to craft something.
State of Decay 1.
Name a game where you have to rob a bank.
Payday.
Name a game where you're at war.
Call of Duty Ghosts.
Name a game where you ride a horse.
Red Dead Redemption.
And name your favourite game.
Ghost Recon.
Okay, lovely, brilliant. Now, moving on to LWood. LWood, are you ready for your questions?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Name a game set in space.
Dead Space.
Name a game with zombies in it.
Call of Duty Black Ops.
Name a game where you have to drive a car.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Name a game where you have to hack something.
Watch Dogs.
Name a game where you can change your outfits.
Craft.
Name a game where you have to craft something.
Minecraft.
Name a game where you have to rob a bank.
GTA.
Name a game where you ride a horse.
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Name your favorite game.
Call of Duty Black Ops.
And that is the thing. I will reveal to you who wins after the next round. Back to you, Seb, in the future. Oh, thank you, Seb from the past. And we will move on to Kamizoide. Kamizoide, are you ready for your questions?
Kinda.
Okay. Starting off in 3, 2, 1. Name a game set in space.
Starfield, an upcoming game.
Name a game with zombies in it.
Resident Evil.
Name a game where you have to drive a car.
GTA.
Name a game where you have to hack something.
Hack something?
Yeah.
Devil May Cry.
Name a game where you can change outfits.
Come on. Central. Oh, thank God.
Name a game where you have to craft something.
Minecraft.
Name a game where you have to rob a bank.
Oh God. Mafia. Yes.
Name a game where you're at war.
Call of Duty.
Name a game where you have to ride a horse.
Red Dead Redemption.
Name your favorite game.
Elden Ring.
And there you go. Brilliant. Well done, Kamizoide. And we're going to give you the results right now because we have them in. Kamizoide did exactly 45 seconds. LWood scored 44 seconds. And Danny scored 43 seconds, which makes Danny the winner. But thank you so much, Kamizoide, for being here.
It's always a pleasure to be here. I messed up the words.
Thank you so much. And I will see you guys in another Jump Inside Jumpcast podcast. See you again. Goodbye from me, and good also bye from Danny and LWood as well.
Good one, everyone.
All the channel links are in the descriptions below, so go check them out. And if you're interested, Kamizoide does some really cool Elden Ring videos, which is kind of what we've been discussing about. So if you want to go check out and see a bit more about the type of game that is, definitely head over there. Anyway, catch you guys later, and goodbye from me.
Good one.